Fleck, and welcome to this Homespun videotape. I'm going to cover several tunes and a bunch of styles, so if you get out your banjo, we can jump right into it. Let's start with Texas Barbecue off my first banjo album, Crossing the Tracks. This is in the D tuning, with the low string tuned to a D, the third string tuned to an F sharp, and the second string tuned to an A, first string tuned to a D, and the fifth string tuned to an F sharp. And to make things confusing, it uses the Scruggs Keith tuners, which I'll show you. These devices, these handy devices, allow you to change the pitch of the string, and it also stops you before you go past your next note, so you can. See what I mean? I'll just play a tune. You'll see how I use them. This is Texas Barbecue. Slow that down for you now. I think if I slow it down, it'll be a little easier to make sense out of it. Version. Now let me take it apart one section at a time. When I started out, I started with a picking pattern with no left hand fingering, and the way the pattern goes, it starts with an open fourth string, and then a pinch, which a pinch is when you play two strings at the same time, pinching the fifth string and the first string. Sounds like this. Then the third finger with the thumb, second finger with the first finger, fifth string with the thumb, first string with the middle finger, and it sounds like this. I repeated that 4 times, so it sounds like this. Then we're into the first part of the tune, which starts with a slide on the left hand with your second finger on the second string, and the slide is from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret. As you reach the end of the slide, you pluck the first string open, so it sounds like this. Then
At this point, I've still got my second finger on the second string, and I moved it up to the 7th fret, still leaving the first string open. So at this point we're kind of getting into a melodic style lick. And you have to move your finger all the way back down to the 3rd fret. This last thing I did here is a pinch again, with my first finger at the 3rd fret of the 3rd string, and at the same time I'm plucking the 1st string open. And the two right hand fingers that I'm using are well, both my fingers, not my thumb. Now that pretty much repeats until when we're up here at the 7th fret, instead of going, it stays up there, and you move your first finger to the 6th fret of the 3rd string, and you do a forward roll. So again, we're leaving the 1st string open. Then you hit the 3rd string open and hammer on, and pull off, and back into it. And this is your 4-chord position, or G chord in D tuning. You keep your first finger down on the 3rd string, 1st fret, and hammer on with your 3rd finger at the 2nd fret of the 2nd string, and then hit the 1st string open. Again, it's a forward roll for your right hand, and you pull off with your 1st finger, and hammer on again with your 1st finger, slide on the 4th string, and then hit this 4th string open, and then repeat. Okay, one thing I want to point out about all of that is that a large part of that, the key to playing that first section, is relying on your 2nd finger. A lot of your moves are going to relate to where your 2nd finger is until you reach this heading lick. Okay, the next part, look at this chord. It's basically your 5 chord, or your A7th chord with a suspension on it. And I'm fingering it with my 2nd finger at the 1st fret of the 3rd string, and my 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. And a lot of people will finger it with these 2 fingers, but I found when I was trying to figure out the best way to play this section of the song that in order to get a good pull-off, I needed to use these 2 fingers, because this whole section involves pull-offs. So now this is the 3rd part of the tune. This is the part where we use the tuners. I'm grabbing them with my thumb and forefinger. That's the trickiest part right there, is moving from one tuner to the next and making sure. Some awful things can happen to you if you don't get this right. It can awful things can happen, believe me. So the trick is moving quickly, and then another problem is getting from the tuner back to the 2nd fret, and those are the parts you should pay special attention to when you're practicing. Okay, let me show you a variation for the second part that I played on the record. In this variation, I had to go back to these fingers for this chord position, which are the first and second fingers rather than the second and third. And the reason is because you're going to use this finger for a hammer-on onto the second fret of the second string, which will sound like this. And also you can do something different with the right hand, which is sort of a pinch. Play the first and second strings together while you hammer on. It'll sound like this. And while I'm at it, there's one other thing you could do to spice up that section even further, which is hammer on two strings at the same time, the first and the second, at the second fret, and it'll sound like this. When I'm changing around a section like that, what I'll tend to do is build it. Start with, for instance, one string hammering on, and then work up to maybe from that point do the pinch. And then when I repeat, my tendency is to start simple and build on it and get more complicated as I go along. Here's an ending for Texas Barbecue. This is the one I did on the record. Let me slow that down. Okay, that all starts out with a pinch of the first and fifth strings, and I used my third finger on the first string and slid all the way up to the 12th fret. Here it goes. I have my first finger at the 5th fret, my third finger at the 7th fret, and I'm sliding from the 7th fret to the 9th fret while plucking the first string open. And then I'm hitting a pinch with my first finger at the 5th fret and an open first string. Then we get into the harmonics. Now these harmonics are played by placing your third finger over all four strings at the 12th fret. And whenever you play harmonics, you should place your finger over the fret, not behind the fret like you would if you were just picking the note, but actually right over the fret. Now here, as I said, your finger's over all four strings on your left hand. Now your right hand, you're doing an inside roll, which means you bring all your fingers inside. Your middle finger is above the first string, and it's going to pluck the second string. So you do this: index, thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle. And that's a triplet, or a couple of them in a row. Then you move your third finger down to the 7th fret and do the same exact thing. Then you move down to the 5th fret and pluck three strings, the top three strings all together. It'll sound like that. So that's the ending of Texas Barbecue. While we're here, let's talk about detuning a little bit. There's a lot of similarities in detuning and G-tuning, and that's something I came to realize kind of by mistake. A lot of the positions, for instance, if you were in G-tuning, this would be your closed G chord. Well, in D, if you're looking for your closed D chord, all you actually have to do is move it all up one string, like this, and it'll be, that involves playing an inside roll. This is just a way to understand the tuning a little bit better, and for me it was kind of a revelation when I found out that I could play almost anything I would do on the first 3 strings in G, I could do in D on the middle 3 strings. Things are a little different, but they're very similar in a lot of ways too. So anyway, if you're doing that, if you're looking at it that way, then your first string is like the 5th string would be in G tuning, because it's a high D. So you can get a lot of the same sounds. Now, you don't want to look at D tuning as a bastardized G tuning, so in the long run you need to find things that work in D that you're comfortable with, but that's just a way of looking at it. Now also, just as far as playing chords, any closed chord bar chords will be exactly the same as they'd be in G, because if you're in D and you want to play a closed D chord, you can always go to the 12th fret and chop. And the G chord is at the 5th fret, the A chord is at the 7th fret, it's your 5 chord, of course back up to your root, 1 chord, closed or open. So that's it for this tune. Let's go on to the next one. This is Brilliancy, and it's an old tune written by Howdy Forrester, and it was written for the fiddle, and I learned it from Blaine Sprouse. I recorded it on a record with Blaine, and I used the capo because it's in A, so if you're playing this with a fiddle player, you'll need to use your capo. This is all melodic style banjo. Let me get you back in tune before I go any further, because we're back in G tuning. Low D string, G, B, D, and G. Let me play that tune again for you slow. Let's break this down. We'll start with the first section of the first part. It starts with an inside roll, once again, if you're gripping these 3 strings on the right hand. Then the thumb hits the 3rd string, which you fret at the 7th fret. And it's a forward roll. Then 5th fret, 2nd string, and then an open G string, 3rd string. And while you're hitting that G string, you slide down and fret a C chord. Then you get a D on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. And the reason we're getting it there instead of the 1st fret open, 1st string open, is because we just played that note on the other string, and we want to keep the ringing sound. And an open G arpeggio. Then that's all out of the G scale. And this last part is a single string lick, which means you alternate thumb and forefinger. Now the next thing is a real fast triplet in which you bring all 3 of your fingers on your right hand up onto the 4th string and hit the G string with your thumb, and then you're back into the same thing. One different thing about this time when we play this lick is the first time we led with the index finger and went. This time, since we did that triplet, our thumb has the lead, so you have to do thumb on the 3rd string, index on the 4th, then thumb again on the 3rd, then the 2nd string open, and then back into what we were doing. The only thing different is that last lick right there. And once again, that's I'm fretting that with thumb, index, middle, thumb, and index. And that repeats. That's the first section. That's all there is to that. There's a couple of spots I just want to go over with you on this. One of them is when it goes. This is a little unorthodox. And when you make your shift from this 10th fret position, is when you hit that 1st string open. That's your chance to make a move. This last thing, it's just one of those things that every time I play it, I might play it a little bit differently. There's a lot of ways to play it. It's really just a major scale, starting on a C note. It could be played with your thumb, fretting the 5th string, or it could be played like this with your 3rd finger, or it could be played like this with your 2nd finger moving down. So where we're coming from is, so I might just continue over there with my 2nd finger. I don't know what to tell you except that see what feels the most comfortable for you, because there's a lot of different ways to do it. Let's see, the next part that first part is this is an interesting position right here for a C chord, because it has an F sharp note in it, and it's a position you'll find. It's an important position to remember for other tunes. Okay. We're playing the same actual notes as the beginning of that lick I was just talking about, except this time we're fingering it this way, starting on the 1st string instead of the 5th string because of the note we just hit. We have to do it that way. And I'm fretting it with these two, and of course I'm using my thumb, you can see. I'm fretting the 7th fret, hitting the 5th, hitting the 7th, 7th again. As you can see, I'm barring, and at this point I lift up without lifting off of the second string. I want this note to still ring. Okay, then this is the same. This is the same position as this, except on lower strings. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm already up in this position, so I don't see why I should go all the way back down here. It's a lot slicker to just stay up here and do it this way. And that's that same scale, little scale pattern. 7th fret, 2nd string, 1st string open, and now I'm sliding up into a D arpeggio. And I don't have to do that, I just think it sounds good. So we could just go, but there's something organic about going. And it's just down the scale. Now as you're hitting your 5th string open, you move your pinky all the way up to the 17th fret of the 1st string. Bring your thumb up over and get it at the 16th fret of the 5th. Excuse me. In this position here, with the 1st finger at the 14th fret, 2nd finger at the 15th of the 2nd string, 3rd finger at the 17th fret, and here's where it gets tricky. You move down to the 2nd string, 12th fret. That's the trickiest little part, is because you've got this note here to worry about hitting clearly, and then you move down to here, and check out your right hand at this point because it's another inside roll. And what I just did is I moved all the way down to the 5th fret to get this note, but you could also get it at the 9th fret if you like. So that's most of the hard things about Brilliancy. Good luck with this one. A technique I like to do a lot. It was just borrowed from finger-picking guitar, and the thing that we're doing is keeping a bass line going at the same time as playing a melody. First of all, let's get back into D-tuning. This is D-tuning, as I said, and it starts out with a low D. The second note is an F sharp, then an A, and then a D. I've got the 5th string tuned to an A, although I don't think I hit it at all, the whole tune. Now this, as I also said, this is a technique I borrowed from guitar, and the trick is keeping your thumb doing that. Forever, till the sun goes down. As far as this hand, there isn't a lot of real complicated stuff going on with the left hand. Let me play the whole thing for you again, slow. On my repeat, I changed one other thing, which is that I did a muting thing with my right hand. I brought my palm down and did the same thing like this. Kind of gives it that old blues finger picking sound. That's something that you can fool around with if you want to, but of course you don't have to. Now, back to this rotating thumb thing. Pretty common finger picking pattern. Let's just look at the right hand. Starts with these two notes, and at the same time hit the first string. Both times. Third time, when you get back to this low D note, you hit it by itself. So it's then an alternating thing where you hit that D note and then you hit the second string open, then the third string, and then the first string. So this is like a basic guitar strum that you do, except we're making it work on a banjo with just the 4 strings. Alright? That's the basis of what's going on. Nearly all the melody notes are played with your middle finger. Once again, I'm still talking about the right hand. Aside from that, if you look at your tablature, I think you can figure out most of what's going on here. So good luck with John Henry. Let's get back in tune in G. Here's your low D, G, B, D, high G. The next thing I want to show you is a piece. It's the second half of the Natural Bridge Suite, which is of course off the Natural Bridge album on Rounder. And let me just play it for you fast or at normal speed, and we'll get into it. Let me slow it down for you now. starts out with a C minor chord position. In fact, all of the first 4 chords are on the inside strings. Well, you can see what I'm doing. The first string is open. And check out the roll I'm doing on my right hand. Basically, the only thing that changes in these next few chords is the low string. It starts out with this C minor position, 3rd finger on the 4th string, and 4th string, 5th fret, pinky right underneath it on the 5th fret of the 3rd string, and 2nd finger on the 4th fret of the 2nd string, the 1st string open, and you do this roll on the right hand. First a forward roll, an inside forward roll, 4th string, 3rd string, 2nd string, thumb on the 3rd string, then the open 1st string, and a backward roll going 1st string, 3rd string, 4th string, and then a 3rd string, and that repeats, except this time the chord position changes and you put your 1st finger at the 4th fret of the 4th string, lifting up your 3rd finger. So it's once again, and in this time we switch to a regular C chord down here, except with the 1st string open. Then we move to a whole new series of chords and positions, starting with an F minor chord at the 5th fret. And instead of working off the 1st string open, we're working off the 5th string open. So there's a certain symmetry between these two sections. This is a D flat chord. The one change in that position is the 2nd finger moving up 1 fret. Now it moves down to the 1st finger on the 4th fret. And this is like a G 7th with a flat 9 note on the top. And the whole thing moves down a half step or 1 fret to a C 7th chord. Okay, now we're going to move into a different feeling. In fact, when I recorded it, through all that section, the whole band played stops on those chords. Then it moved into sort of a Latin feeling section, and the chords were, it was this part of the song where it went. So that starts with an F minor again on the top 3 strings. Down to what is basically a B flat suspended chord. What happens here is that when you're playing this F minor, you hit the 5th string. That's an open string, so you're free to move down to this next position. And then you work into a straight B flat with the 5th string again, making the B flat 6th, into an E flat, down to a flat major 7, which is, it's a very symmetrical pattern to the first pattern of this section. The F minor makes the same roll. Then you play a it's going to go to a D chord, to G, and then it repeats. At this point, we go to a D minor 7 flat 5 chord, which is the same as this F minor position we were doing earlier, except with a low D note. Then to a G 7th with an augmented 5th, so it's like this chord here. And this last chord is basically a C chord. We're playing 2 notes out of a C chord and an open 1st string, which is 9th. It's just it's really supposed to be a minor chord, but you don't have to play the minor note. It would really, with a minor note, it would be this. It's sort of a nice spelling, but the way I played it was. Then we move into the second part of the tune, which is all melodic style and against weird chords. Goes. This first thing is an upbeat lick. The downbeat of the timing starts with that note. And these two notes are E flat to an F on the third string and the second string, fifth string open, and then we start to get into this position. I'm bringing my thumb up over the top at the 10th fret, and I'm barring the first and second strings with my third finger. And that can be kind of difficult. You just have to move your hand with the lick to make it work. We go back into this position, which is what we started this section with. And then another position with your thumb up over the top. Okay, this position here, first finger at the 3rd fret, second finger at the 4th fret of the 2nd string, pinky at the 6th fret of the 3rd, and then we move into this position. It's a B flat minor. Then you put your second finger on the 5th string. Sorry, actually that's what happened. And then the 5th string. And then repeat. This is that D minor flat 5 again. And to a G. And on the right hand there's kind of a triplet, a backward roll that is a little bit unorthodox or something. To make it work. It's just a backward roll starting with the thumb. Thumb, middle, index, thumb. This last thumb note you happen to be playing instead of the 3rd note of the scale, which is the B, you play the 4th. And then you pluck the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and the 5th fret of the 1st string. Then there's a slide back into this C minor position that we started the whole tune with. And the whole thing repeats. You might have noticed if you're watching closely that I did all of that with different fingers than the way I showed you, which only goes to show that when it really comes down to it, if you mess up and use the wrong finger, you just have to compensate by sticking whatever finger you can get into the right place. So a lot of times I'll finger things differently on the spur of the moment, mostly because I didn't do what I thought I was gonna. So anyway, onward. It repeats this again. That's basically it. There's a trend lately among 5-string banjo players to learn Irish music, and a lot of people are doing it. Bill Keith has done some of it, and Tony Trischka. And I got the chance to go to Ireland for 3 weeks lately, and I spent a lot of time working on the Irish style. And the way I do it, which I think is a little different from the way other people, is I do most of it single string style instead of working with a melodic banjo concept when I do it. So I thought I might show you one of these tunes. Probably the most common key for Irish tunes, as far as I could tell from being over there, was D. And there's a couple other things I could mention offhand about playing Irish music. There's a lot of ornamentation, and there's a lot of improvisation with the ornamentation too. It's not all one way that you play it. In fact, as you go around the country, you find people playing the same tunes, and sometimes you can't even recognize them because they're ornamented so different. So there's a lot of things you can do, and the main thing is keeping the spirit of the tune going. This is called "The Wind That Shakes the Barley." This is one that I learned over there. Here we go. Wind That Shakes the Barley. This has got a lot of complicated little things going in it. One is these triplets. And I'm doing those with 3 fingers on one string. So one thing you may want to try is just putting your 3 fingers on the first string and trying this. Getting the proper snap into those triplets. Try this for a second. Place your first finger at the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and your 2nd finger on the 4th fret of the 1st string, and hit that note first, the 4th fret note first, 1st string. And index. All these rest of these notes are going to be on the 2nd string. I'm on the 1st string. Index on the 2nd, and then a triplet. 3 notes together on one string. It's a good way to practice for what comes next. This is the 2nd part of the tune where it goes. Another way that they ornament is by pulling off notes very quickly, like for instance. And what I'm doing is pulling off so quickly that you barely hear the first note. You really just hear the B note open, except with some sort of percussion to it. Let me go to the top of the tune and start working through it. Or should I slow it down? Let me slow it down. Okay, now I'll take it apart. I slide into this first note with my first finger on the 3rd string. Bringing my thumb down to the 2nd string open, and then I'm doing this, the quick pull-off, slur, diddle, whatever you want to call it. And the parts that I'm not mentioning are just the straight single string licks, which will be written down. Now, thumb on the 4th string, and then you follow through the triplet with your 2 fingers on the 3rd string on this closed A note. This is sort of an involved single string lick because you sort of switch positions in it. Move up. Then you repeat. second part, which, if you remember what I was talking about before I even repeated it. Right. Now I choose to use an open first string to make my shift. Sorry. Now at this point, when you play the 4th string, you have to make a jump after the 9th fret on the same 1st string. So it goes. Once you get up there, you're in this higher position and you don't jump back down. You do 3 notes of the scale on the 1st string, 2 on the 2nd string, 1 on the 3rd string, and then you skip an open 2nd string, and you're back to the top of the song. So there's a lot of different elements mixed together to make that work. The real important part of getting those Irish tunes right is the feel. It's a very, very bouncy kind of a thing, and the only way to really get comfortable with that is to listen to the records. Listen to records by people like the Bothy Band, the Dannon, Stockton Swing, the Chieftains, and you'll hear people really playing that stuff well. And of course, finding people to play those tunes with really, really helps. And it's a pretty unexplored thing to fool around with on 5-string banjo. So have a lot of fun with it. Where to start? How about the blues? The blues is a great device for learning and teaching because the same progression repeats over and over, and you can try a million different things against it. So I thought it'd be a good way to work on single string stuff as well as really anything. So let me show you. I've got a little tune called Sammy's Blues that I've put together that we can start with. At first I'll show you the tune, and then we'll go into some different things you can try on it. Sammy's Blues. For Sammy, whatever you want to call it. Starts out of this G position. First finger at the 2nd fret, and then you go to the 2nd finger at the 3rd and you slide. Okay? And then we do the same thing up 5 frets out of a C position. And then we'll work out of this G position here, and we go. Now, almost all of the picking there is single string picking, which is done on your right hand with your thumb and forefinger, but in a couple of places I use some different fingers, so let's go through it. This is the first time I use my middle finger at this point. Okay? So, the rest of it is all thumb and forefinger. Then it goes. And that phrase starts out of a C chord. And this second part is basically out of the next position of a C chord up here. And then we just move right back down to this G position. It's almost the same position. The same thing we did before. The next part, virtually the same lick except on a D. And this last thing, the C chord, still all thumb and forefinger on the right hand. The only difference is instead of ending on the root C note, we end on the 7th, giving it a funky sound. Then we return to the original lick. If I was playing this somewhere or for fun with some people or anything, I would usually just play that melody to start with and then start improvising, just play things that fit the concept of that melody, but maybe make them up as I go along. So maybe I'll do some of that so you can see how I do that, get some ideas, and figure it out. So I'll just start with the melody once, and then I'll just play some things and then stop. Kind of difficult to take that apart because so much of it is just improvised and it's based on years of making mistakes and not making mistakes and learning and listening. So I would suggest you just listen to those and take what you can from them, but most of all use them as a springboard for your own improvisations and ideas. There's a million things you can do on a blues progression, and those are just the very, very beginning. And also listen to as many different instruments playing blues. They'll all give you ideas that will work on a banjo. Before I get out of here, I just thought I'd mention a few things. Maybe tell you about this instrument, for instance. It's a half-breed. The pot part of it is from what was called a style 75, which is a late 30s flathead master tone. And I've got a real interesting neck on here that was made for me recently by John Monteleone. And it's got 2 or 3 real interesting features. I just thought I'd tell you about it since it's what I'm playing on these days. The fingerboard is arched like a lot of jazz guitars have been, and like a lot of electric guitars and Fender basses, and also violins and acoustic basses. And also it's a wider neck, which seems to give me a little more room just between the strings to get into places and so forth. I like that. Aside from that, I have a bridge that's arched too, because of course if the neck is arched and the bridge isn't, in the center of the bridge the strings would flap. So Monteleone made me a couple of bridges, about 3 of them that all sound a little different from each other. Thanks for hanging in there through all of this stuff, and I sure hope you learned some things. If you like this series, there's a cassette tape series on Homespun tapes that you can find out about. And if you want to ask me about any of this stuff, feel free to write me in care of Homespun tapes. So long, and thanks a lot.